Ingram Smith, Bud Elliott, back again for another episode of the Nolecast. Bud will always start the podcast by thanking the people that make it possible. A big shout out to all of the team at For the Table Restaurant Group, but particularly the lovely Charlie Park, as we're looking at a 3-week swing here of straight home games at Florida State. Want to always encourage you to keep those guys in the back of your mind, whether it be a celebratory cocktail on Saturday night, a lovely dinner on Friday night as you're getting into town, or maybe a little bit of brunch on Sunday as you're leaving. So charlieparkrestaurant.com is the website, and it is far and away Tallahassee's best rooftop bar and people that we are so fortunate to be able to continue to work with.
Absolutely, man. That is an awesome spot to go. And obviously 3 straight home games. So let's make sure all of our Nolecast listeners hit them up if you are in town. All right. So bye week treat you well?
It was great. charlieparkrooftop.com. Excuse me. It's always great when I bat about 500 on what's the actual websites for our partners. So do let me correct that. No, bye week was fantastic, man. Great to be able to, great to be able to have a bye week. So, and also great to be able to watch a little bit more of the sport as a whole. And I think that'll probably be where some of this conversation goes as well.
100%. I do want to give a quick update on our prize picks, prizepicks.com. Prize picks in the App Store, both Apple and iPhone. Promo code Nolecast gets you 100% deposit match bonus up to $100 for first-time depositors. Well, it was still fun, but it wasn't winning fun this weekend for mine. I've given out 2 25s to 1 and a 10 to 1 that have hit so far this year. And I think that's on, 8 cards. So, plus 60, minus 5. So up 55 units roughly is something I will certainly take playing prize picks. But I want to win every week. And that's actually really hard to do. So I do like to have fun with it every week. Man, Caleb Williams, that was super annoying. USC had played fairly okay defense. They were up 27, and then they just completely collapsed. So that was annoying. Bo Nix, actually, we missed it by 3 yards. Under 287.5. He had 290. Stanford went up 6-0 in that game. So Oregon had to keep their starters in about 1 drive longer than I expected. Deion Burks, no sweat there. I mean, 13 fantasy score. We went with more, 19.3. Fairly easy there. Brian Thomas, Jordan Watkins combo in the LSU game that hit by the end of the first half. So that was encouraging. Shedeur Sanders under 21.5 fantasy score. He started running, picked up all those rushing yards and rushing touchdowns. And then Andrew Armstrong, less than 61.5 receiving yards. This one we had in the bag until the final play. And they threw a 45-yard, not Hail Mary, but basically just, bomb at the end of the game, which was kind of meaningless because Arkansas was down big against A&M. Super annoying. Also, I thought the first card we put out was better. So did y'all. Y'all hit the heck out of it, and the Lions ended up moving after the Nolecast listeners bombed it. Ray Davis, less than 79.5 rushing yards, lasted about 1 drive. And then he had a 90-yard run and 80, all that kind of stuff. The rest of it was actually pretty decent. Deion Burks, more than 4 receptions. Garrett Schrader, less than 225 passing yards against Clemson. We'll talk more about that ball game. Luke Altmaier, more than 209.5 passing yards. He missed it by 7. That's clearly not a good one. Jaden Daniels, more than 281.5 passing yards. Hello. I would say that one hit. And Drew Lar, more than 1.5 passing touchdowns. Penn State had 4 rushing touchdowns. So
yeah.
Kind of annoying there.
By no means a secret, but I will try to combo play any game that has the LSU secondary involved moving forward. So if it means that they're just not going to tackle and Jaden Daniels is going to get the ball back all that faster, then that will be part of my math as well. That is, again, we'll bring this conversation as to what we can learn or what we think we can learn from our team more. But that, I don't know if you guys watched the LSU Ole Miss game, but that legitimately was one of the worst performances from a position group I think I've ever seen. And I don't think I'm being hyperbolic about that. It was Yeah, LSU secondaries. We knew they weren't good. We knew it was one of the reasons why ourselves and others on the beat were confident going into that game, but that was one of the singular worst performances I've ever seen. So there
Yeah,
we go.
that was. Let's jump into that actually. Do you feel differently about your opinion on Florida State after watching LSU give up points to Arkansas, give up points, a lot of points, and I believe that's Ole Miss set a record for yards in a game for an Ole Miss record, not an SEC record, with 700 yards. Which, I mean, look, in the clock rule era, that's 705 is kind of nets out to like, not that Ole Miss really takes advantage of the clock rule, but it probably nets out to like 720 or 730, right? I mean, that's horrendous. Do
I
you
think there were
feel
plays at the
differently?
end of the game where they weren't even trying to score, and
Yeah.
LSU's tacklers were just jumping at ankles, grabbing air, and touchdowns did occur. It was so here's a little bit of sweet, here's a little bit sour. Here I do have to adjust some of what I think about this offense if our reference point is going to be like, oh, well, if they can click like they did in the second half of the LSU game, because that, quite honestly, I can't watch a unit perform that poorly, and not extrapolate it to the play of my own team when they played against them, or Florida State when they played against them. I will say, and I don't want to have the conversation each week of like, is this a national championship team? Because I don't think that's fair. I don't think we're there yet from expectations of a supporters. But I will say, until you see Georgia truly wake up and be the force that we all think they are, then it's up for grabs, man. I mean, Washington might legitimately be the best team in the country right now. I think it's open season, and if this team can continue to improve or improve in facets and keep other facets strong, and yeah, a lot of stuff is possible. It does. We said this 3 or 4 weeks ago. For our younger listeners, you may have to go watch a 20-minute YouTube or something to fully grasp what the reference is, but it feels very 2007-ish right now. I mean, this is a crazy year where it doesn't feel like there's any super obvious team as to who it is, and as long as Georgia's relying upon a transcendent tight end to bail them out and kind of wake that team up, then I do think that this is just kind of open season for whoever wants to play the best ball at the end of the year.
Totally. I watch a lot of LSU, as you know. My wife went to LSU, and so it's she was not really enjoying that game against Ole Miss. I also bet some LSU this weekend, so that was annoying. I think that you're exactly right on the sweet and sour. LSU is a different defense now than it was when you played them. And this is not me doing like the FSU homer thing. I mean, schematically different. Now, the secondary lost a starting safety who, thank God they caught it, but he had a brain tumor.
Mm-hmm.
And they're down him. Obviously, they're still down the Johnson kid who they took from Ohio State, who broke his leg in preseason camp. So he didn't play against FSU. Your safety with the brain tumor did, right? They are different, though, schematically than when you played them. Now, I'm not sure that they're that much worse than when you played them. So to your point, yeah, like it does make me think that FSU's offense doesn't have very many good games. Okay. Like putting 42 on LSU is not that impressive when Arkansas puts 30 something and Ole Miss, drops a 55 burger. However, against Florida State, LSU was playing Perkins as like an off-ball linebacker. In the successive 2 weeks, they moved him to more of an edge position, but it was actually not the spot that I thought he would thrive in. They moved him to more of a Sam position, which is more of like a read, react, take on blocks, etc. In this game, they actually moved him to the jack, which is more of your like see ball, get ball, like go get it, scream up field type position. I don't know why they took 4 games to do so, but I have my suspicions. He looked great against Ole Miss. The problem was everybody else who had just been shifted around looked like they had no idea what they were doing. I mean, literally, like their run fits just didn't make any sense, right? Like who is supposed to be in the fit here? I think it's this guy, but the way they aligned it was anyway. Like Lane Kiffin just pencil whipped those guys on the chalkboard. Whatever, he out schemed them pretty hard. And obviously, Ole Miss played with a lot of juice in that game. But yeah, I think you have to reevaluate your offense some, because they also didn't have Mason Smith in that game when they played you, and they have had him since, and he's a damn good player. I think LSU's defense will improve actually going forward. I think they're probably going to have to just sort of realize, like, all right, this is what we are. We're not going to win a national title this year. We need to like make sure we still win, 8 or 9 ball games, which Vegas has them 8.5 plus 110 to the over. So they're kind of expecting a little more 8-4 than 9-3, but kind of in that range. So still likely a ranked team by the end of the season, but definitely not guaranteed to be one. I think they'll go like a lot more one gap stuff and just scream up field like crazy. And I don't want to go too far down the LSU rabbit hole, but yes, it does make me think that the FSU's offense is not as good as I thought it was, for sure. On the flip side, LSU kind of rolls out of bed and scores 30 plus.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think that FSU's defense is better than it was last year. I mean, I know LSU moved the ball some on you, but your first team defense held them to 17. That 84-yard bomb they hit at the end, which was totally garbage time. You're at 45-17, up 4 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. I mean, that was against all freshmen that they had put in, right? I have a higher opinion of FSU's defense after that game, because I know Ole Miss's defense is not great, but like, how bad can Ole Miss's defense really be? Like, are they a 70th rated defense with SEC players? I highly doubt it, right? There's a certain level of like a breaking point, like a minimum, unless you're Vanderbilt, that you really can't be worse than defensively in the SEC, just because defense correlates really heavily to speed and size. That game for FSU's defense looks not great, but good now, given what LSU has at the receiver position and how well Daniels has been playing.
Yeah, good perspective there. It's tough, man. Game ones, typically you get, I don't know. You get a very focused team, get a lot of energy, you get as prepared a team as you will all season. You also have more, just blown assignments. People line up wrong. It's game one. It can be very sloppy at the same time. So it's always hard to take away a whole lot. But I did watch that and certainly was going through my mind about if this is our benchmark of what the offense can be, then maybe we need to adjust that a little bit. Clemson game didn't really take away a whole lot from that, other than Clemson didn't dissolve and fall apart in the manner that some thought they might. Never a fun place for them to go up to Syracuse. Competitive game early on. Clemson pulled away. I think Clemson may lose one more game in the regular season, but I think you've got a decent idea as to what Clemson is and will be this year, absent some kind of concentration of injuries in a particular group or something like that. So I don't know that there's a whole lot to take away from that one, and would be interested in your thoughts. But Syracuse gave them a little bit of a run. Clemson responded. Clemson ended up winning the game easily.
Totally. That was one of my heavier games of the weekend as far as from a betting perspective. My thought was like, if Clemson cares, Clemson will whip them. And Clemson's offense didn't. I thought Klubnik looked pretty good for the most part. He's still late throwing some of these screens. And that was the only real time that he put the ball in jeopardy. I think Clemson's defense is really damn good. If we feel a little bit worse about FSU's offense after watching LSU's successive results, I feel a little bit better about FSU's offense after watching Clemson tear up Syracuse. Now, in fairness, Syracuse doesn't have Gadsden, doesn't have Jones, doesn't have Pena. Those are their 3 best pass catchers. We said on this show last week having to run Garrett Schrader 25x against Purdue was a canary in the coal mine. And they also had to run him 14 times against Army. They don't have weapons. Also, the Villari kid, who was their best player, I thought, on Saturday, who's a converted quarterback that they got from Michigan. Now he's a tight end. Pretty good athlete. He got hurt too. He hurt his wrist. I don't know what that means. Like, will he be back in time for the game? But Syracuse comes to Doak in 11 days. So I'm significantly less worried about Syracuse. Not that I ever was super worried, but I mean, I don't think they're like a top 30 level team at this point. Yeah. Given the injuries that they have. They're also banged on the O-line. So we'll see.
Syracuse comes to Doak in a couple of weeks, and would encourage all of you to be sporty and looking sharp in your Florida State bomber jacket that our friends from Home Field Apparel are offering. Homefieldapparel.com is the website. You can click over to teams, drop down the Florida State offerings. As we said, they put something out about 2 years ago. They've got that 1.0 line that's still out there. Features a lot of very prominent or popular t-shirts I think you'll recognize, but also have a whole nother line of vintage Florida State stuff, have some great old logo things if you're one of those type of individuals. And like I said, bomber jacket is sharp and available, but I don't know if you're just starting to get a little football temperatures down there in Orlando come October 1st, but it's certainly I love the comment in YouTube there about a guy placing his home field order. But no, the weather's changing. Grab some of these jackets, grab some of these clothes. Like I said, I always do a decent amount of Christmas shopping on the Home Field website, and would encourage you to keep them in the back of your mind and thank them for the support that they give the Nolecast.
No doubt about it, man. It is an awesome company, and we really, really excited to partner with them. And that bomber jacket is sweet. Weather-wise, we are not quite yet. We had a little bit of a tease. There was about a 2-day period. I was like, oh, okay, like it's crisp. You step out to get the newspaper, and you're like, okay, like I'm not sweating on the walk down my driveway. This is nice. And then, this morning I was loading the kids in the car for my wife to take them to school, and back to it. So, yeah, it's been a little hot. We got a question from the chat here. Who's the better team right now, LSU or Clemson? Snap call, I think I would take Clemson to beat LSU. Just based on how they just played. I think it's close.
Yeah, it would be close. I'd like to see that.
They're both like top 15 power rated teams for sure.
I think I'd go Clemson as well at this point.
Like small. If either team is favored by 3, you're taking the dog in the 3 points. I think. For me, it'd be close. Another game I want to talk about here. Oh, by the way, I mean, if you look at Clemson's remaining schedule, for FSU's schedule strength, Clemson going 9-3 would certainly be a bit of a boon for them. You have Wake Forest this weekend, which they should win. Clemson always kind of wrecks Wake, by the way. Like Wake does not generally play them close. It's kind of the one team that Wake does not do well against in the league relative to talent. Then they get a bye week, and then I think they should get Antonio Williams back by that point. They get Miami in Death Valley. They get at NC State, Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, which now looks a lot worse after losing at home to Bowling Green. That's a heinous loss.
It's toughy. North
Carolina at South Carolina. Clemson's schedule sets up to be pretty damn hard. If they can manage to go 9-3, which means only losing one more time, that's extremely impressive. Actually, it would be fairly impressive if they can go 8-4 against this, given who they had already lost. But yeah, for your own schedule strength, that certainly would help quite a bit. Now, if they lose the Miami game, then that means Miami is coming into Doak undefeated. So, that would also help you in terms of marquee win type stuff. Another team I want to talk about here coming up is Michigan. And you don't play Michigan, and I don't think you play any teams that Michigan plays this year. But I've been watching a lot of Michigan because people have said, like, hey, who's the best team in the country this year? It's a topic that we often have to talk about on Cover 3. And I'm going to relate this back to Florida State. So Michigan took 3 transfer offensive linemen. Okay. Henderson, Drake, and Hinton. Florida State took 2 transfer offensive linemen. Harris has already been here, but he only played 1 game last year. So if you wanted to call it 3, whatever. Well, they also took Jones.
It's 3. It's 3. Yeah. It's Roddick, Byers, Jones.
So Michigan, their run game this year had been like statistically effective, but if you watched them, it really hadn't been very smooth, right? And they had played just absolute nobodies. I mean, Bowling Green, East Carolina, Rutgers, and somebody. Just kind of 4 walkovers. But if you watched it, they were running like a lot of different stuff and playing with a lot of different combinations of the offensive line. They had Hinton in, they had Metcalf in. They're rotating both the tackles. It looked to me like they were doing like a boatload of zone stuff that they didn't run last year, and then it didn't actually look that smooth. Then you go to the Nebraska game, and it's just power counter, a little bit of split zone mixed in. And it seemed like they had like a set group of offensive linemen they wanted to roll with. It really looks like Michigan treated those first 4 games as the preseason. The thing is, Florida State did not have that luxury. Okay? They couldn't treat these first 4 games as the preseason because those their 4 hardest games, as far as like a hard game stretch of 4 games, was the first 4 games of the year. I really do believe that your next couple games are games in which you can experiment in games with different things. Now, people might say, hey, like I'm done with experimenting. Why? If Michigan can do it in their first 4 games, your next 4 games are Vatek, Syracuse, Duke, Wake. Now, those aren't all guaranteed wins. If you played your worst possible game and they played their best possible game, you could lose one of those games. Is it likely? No, it's very unlikely. I mean,
Duke game changed significantly after the last play of the game. Bud and I were texting back and forth then, and I was frustrated that Duke didn't win the game against Notre Dame because I thought they had a chance. And also, I think if Florida State is wanting to be a playoff team and perhaps be a playoff team with any margin of error, that they need some kind of marquee win, and was hoping that would be that for them. And then Duke's quarterback broke or whatever his ankle he did on the final play of the game.
Ankle sprain, they're saying, but I'm highly skeptical that he will be back in 3 weeks.
Yeah, that changes the dynamics of that significantly. This program isn't quite at a point to where it can completely write off, conference opponents, etc. But you do still have a lot of time, quote unquote, in the lab if you want to approach some of the next couple of weeks of that. Obviously, this week would be as much of an opportunity as any. I mean, it's nice that they won this weekend, but Virginia Tech's a very, very bad football team. It's not a game that should be particularly competitive.
And that's a horrible loss for Pitt to go up. I understand it's like a home run game situation for the Hokies, like totally backs against the wall. If you lose that, your chance of going to bowl is completely done because you dropped a 1-4. It's not a rivalry, but regionally, like it's there. And that was Vatek's game. I am definitely a believer in spots, and just understanding like, okay, this is their game, basically. If they screw it up, like they're really in trouble. Like I thought Tennessee, it was Tennessee's game this weekend against South Carolina. Like total revenge spot off an FCS team, getting healthy. South Carolina, like I thought South Carolina had to have the Mississippi State game because if you lose that, you're definitely not bowling and like you're not hot seated because you just gave the guy an extension, but like the momentum is just the balloon is going flat. Yeah, Vatek's pretty bad. They're getting a couple of their guys back, but still, like even full strength Virginia Tech is not a good football team. Their defense is horrid. Safeties and backers look really bad to me. So agree with that. But like I do think, and this might piss people off if FSU doesn't start clicking and looking great. I would continue to rep different combinations and different stuff in games, especially if you're not going to be running Jordan, which I mean, look, he's still up there in the Heisman odds, but and there's certainly still a path for it. Like, it's not like he's fallen off like Shedeur Sanders or something like that. I mean, he's still up there pretty high, but I don't clearly you're not playing. I don't think you're playing to like he's fifth in the Heisman odds. It's Caleb, Penix, Ewers, Bo Nix, Jordan Travis.
Brock Bowers in on that one?
No, he's like 70 to 1.
Okay.
We did the Brock Bowers debate yesterday. If you want to tell me that Bowers is the best player in college football, I might entertain it. But if you're going to win, the guys who win the Heisman are dudes who play like strong link systems, not weak link systems, because like it allows their excellence to impact the game even more.
Yeah.
And he's 30th in the nation or 31st in the nation in receiving yards.
Yeah. I will say he's so clearly like the most dynamic piece on that offense that it'd be interesting. I could see him continuing to trend up, but we'll
they're going to hype him like crazy for it.
Stuff. Yeah.
I also don't know if Georgia has a marquee game.
Yeah. No, they don't.
I mean, Kentucky, Florida, what's crazy is Daniels is still up there in the Heisman with 2 losses.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, now granted, he's going to have an opportunity to knock off A&M, Bama, et cetera, which will still be marquee games. So maybe as a 2-loss, guy throws for 5,000 yards, whatever. Okay, so I think you can kind of comp the need to experiment and run different things for Michigan with Florida State. That does not mean that Florida State's going to get it fixed like Michigan does. But at some point, you're probably going to get Robert Scott back, right? Like, I don't think you need to have him back this weekend or next weekend or even the next weekend. But if you can get him back and feeling good and getting repped in practice, maybe some game reps before Miami, that would be a nice target, right? If you get him back, maybe you can play by or some at guard, right? I think mixing Washington in more at center continually is a need for this team. Honestly, like I know people want to put him at tackle, but can we really trust that Mo Smith's back's going to hold up the whole year? I don't know. Like he's a warrior every time he goes out there. So I'm excited to see what they experiment with in games and what they want to rep in games and how they change this in games, especially in the run game. And then I don't know how much Jordan's non-throwing arm is affecting his throwing because he was having some of these issues before he got whacked. But, to me, he's playing like I thought within the conference so far, definitely Drake May. I thought Leonard was playing better, and I thought Tyler Van Dyke had played better than he had so far. Now, it doesn't mean I think those are better players, although the first two I do. Van Dyke, I think, is still very much like we'll see. But, like, you do need Jordan, given this is not like a Bama, Georgia level roster. You need him to play better than he has if you want to reach those ultimate goals. So he has to be more accurate. Like, I saw his press conference where he was saying, like, Clemson was disrespecting him and disrespecting receivers. I'm like, dude, they're disrespecting you because you missed a bunch of throws because they don't think you're that good. They think you're the guy that's more that 7th round undrafted type pick. You didn't really prove them different, honestly. Like, you're a good college ball player. FSU needs Jordan to be a great college ball player if they really want to get to where they're going to go. And we haven't seen it yet, but I think it's possible that we do. So, I am really excited about these next couple of weeks. Let's see a couple other things here. Yeah, the Duke thing, that sucks for that kid, man. Mm-hmm. He's really good, really effective, and that really stinks for them. All right, defensively, there's a lot of talk in the bye week, and I watched the press conference that had Fuller getting asked about like should they blitz more and whatnot. And I think you probably will see this team play more aggressively, more press coverage, probably more blitz than they have. Just I think you can kind of read some of the signals from his answer and Norvell's answers. But man, I am annoyed. Like, why are you not more cohesive as a team playing zone? Like, why do you have to play man and blitz so much? I do think you have a good front in terms of rushing the passer. If you didn't give up immediate open guys quite as often, and you had the ability to play a more cohesive zone and pass guys off, match routes, close distance, I think you'd be a better defense. And it does make me think like, man, like coaching here is a continued issue for this football team. I shot a TikTok yesterday for CBS, which is going like mega viral on basically is Lincoln Riley wasting Caleb Williams there at USC because they can't pair just a decent defense with him. And I got asked like, hey, does this comp to Mike Norvell keeping Fuller? And I was like, no, I don't think so, because A, the results were not anywhere near as bad as what USC's were the prior year, right? And the track record is not anywhere near as bad. And also, like, Jordan isn't close to Caleb. Like, he's a top, kind of 5 to 15, 10 to 20 quarterback in the sport, to my eyes. Some people like it more than I do. It doesn't, like, nobody's going to look back and be like, man, they wasted Jordan Travis. If USC doesn't make the playoff, they're going to be like, okay, that's like one of the best players we've ever seen play this sport, and they didn't make the playoff.
Yeah, he's a returning Heisman winner. Yeah.
Like
a little different.
He'll
Absolutely.
even run plays. He's just like, all right, cool. I'm just going to drop back. Nobody can touch me, and then I'm going to launch the ball 70 yards downfield for a touchdown. Yeah. I don't know. It is disappointing. Like why can't Florida State play a little bit better zone? Why can't they be more cohesive and well coached in the back end?
We will have to see what happens there. I share some of your frustrations. Zone has been something that we've, that Florida State has struggled with over a period of time, and I have to see what kind of modifications, adjustments occurred during the bye week. I do think that I could see you getting a little bit better there, and obviously the return of Akeem Dent changes this secondary pretty significantly if and when that does happen.
Oh, the other thing is, from a style perspective, I would kind of like to see this team play faster. Like if you're going to play, if you're going to play what I think you're going to play on defense, which is more press, more aggressive, probably more blitz, because you really don't love these backers in coverage, and the safeties making tackles. It continues to be a bit of an issue. Obviously, more Knowles than Shaheem. I think you have to tolerate giving up more explosive plays, which is not what they wanted to do come in the year. But also, maybe the trade-off is, it could be more turnovers, although we both know that's more random. Like, they do this like mission takeaway stuff on Twitter, and that's well and good. And you need to try to instill the fact in your players that they can control for that as long as they play their assignments. But we both know turnovers are fairly random, and there's a huge luck component. But 3 and outs are not, right? And playing more aggressively, sacks in drives, tackles for loss, oftentimes in drives. Basically getting those guys off the field is pretty key. Getting your offense more reps could really help you. And I think this is an offense that really could thrive with some tempo once they settle on what they want to run in the run game, and once they settle on the guys in terms of the offensive line rotation. I don't notice that this is a team that I like. Okay, take your time, get up there. Everybody make sure we got their assignments. Yeah, cool, and go. Because they're not a team that I think can really push people around that much. I think you need to steal some plays. Not like picking defensive signals, but I mean, like, you need to get some freebies because the defense is not aligning correctly, or because the defense doesn't have time to get the calls in because you are going a little more tempo. Not necessarily Tennessee, but I do hate that you can't play like a quality zone defense where you match routes and close distance and pass guys off effectively. Like that annoys me to no end. At Florida State, you should be able to do that. However, if you're going to play this style, I actually think it could be complementary to what might work better for the offense.
Mm-hmm. I can see that, certainly. Yeah. I mean, and if ultimately your strength of your team is getting the ball quarterback as many times as possible, then that that pairs. And I think there's aspects of this defense that will improve and be a little bit more formidable in time. But it's just I hate to say this because it sounds like a cop out, but it's just the modern game too, man. I mean, the game is about scoring. The game is about being as dynamic as you can on offense, and limiting as much as you can as the other team. So it has certainly changed dramatically in that regard. So I think what you're looking for, though, Bud, is perhaps a defense that's more efficient. And if you're wanting a company that could be more efficient in how it operates and operates at its peak optimization, then we would certainly suggest our friends at Congruity. Matt Lewis has been a fantastic partner for us, really turned into more of a business confidant than anything else. But Matt is a great resource for the Nolecast and a couple other businesses that I have a part of, and very much confident that he would be the same for you. Done, I believe, 12 businesses now, which is a fantastic response. We would encourage anybody to take a look at the website if you have an interest in Congruity. CongruityHR.com is the site. And as always, I'm happy to make a third-party introduction to Matt if you so desire. So with that, we'll jump back into it.
Absolutely, man. Okay, so Vatek, Syracuse, Duke, at Wake, at Pitt. Pitt looks kind of broken to me. I'm sure you will get a home run effort for that game from Pitt. I don't exactly know what Pitt's home run swing looks like, because we really haven't seen it so far this year, and they might just be broken. I mean, you should be 9-0. Really should. Enter that Miami game. Miami took care of business against Temple. Really can't fault them for how they played. Came out, took care of business. I will say that, and I did not expect this to be the case, but given who Temple has lost, I now have Temple as a bottom 5 team in the country. They are playing multiple true freshmen or walk-ons on the defensive line. If you watch the Tulsa game, I didn't have anything pre-flop in that, but I live bet the heck out of Tulsa as soon as I saw who they were running out there. I was like, oh my God, these, because that can be an edge, right? Just watching who they're actually playing in the game, and just kind of referencing your preseason depth chart and be like, oh my God, they're down 6 of their 8 2 deep guys on the D line. So Miami looks good. That'll be a challenge for you. They're very aggressive on defense. That's a game that they kind of want to play a little bit faster. I think FSU is pretty comfortable playing at some speed and playing a little bit higher scoring, more aggressive game. That'll be a really fun one to watch. And I think that is one that you'll probably be pretty glad is in Doak. I definitely think Florida State's secondary is better than A&M's, though. As much as we want to complain about this defense, A&M has real defensive problems in the back end, more so than the Noles do, in my opinion. So that'll be an interesting one for sure. North Alabama, again, always nice to have it. We got a question here. Probably need to get to. Shenanigans asked, is Napier the kind of coach you talk about in Cover 3 as being really disorganized on the road, hence the 1-7 record while not in the swamp under him? Yeah, 1-7 away from the swamp is that's tough.
Man, it's tough.
That's tough. Not really what you're looking for there.
That game opened up 23-0, 24-0 Florida, or Kentucky rather.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a toughie. That's a toughie. That I will say, just speaking totally honest, I was shocked by how much momentum Florida picked up from that Tennessee victory. That did not break my heart to see them have that type of performance in Kentucky. Let me put it that way. They're a lot of ebb and flow in the emotions right now when it comes to Florida football. So,
yeah, did you watch Napier's press conference yesterday?
Yeah, I saw parts of it. Yes,
I would watch it if you guys at home have not watched this. And he was really defensive, and it kind of caught me off guard. I wonder if he's feeling more pressure than I think he's feeling or should be
It's
feeling.
2023, bud.
Yeah.
That was one of his responses.
Yeah, well, he got asked about
great podcasting, right. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he all right, the question he got asked, he's like, all right, what do you make about, or like, what improvements have you seen in your team since you lost at Vanderbilt last year? And he's like, it's 2023, right? Like he didn't want to talk about anything from last year. The Florida game's weird to me because like if you play that game again, and I don't think Florida's amazing, but man, I don't know that Kentucky blows them out again. Like Florida is a team that is heavily dependent on what I'm going to call game script. Like how the game goes early against Florida matters a lot because they're not a good drop back passing team. The receivers are not amazing. The Wilson kid is their most dynamic player, and he's not in right now, obviously. So they're on the road. They have just made critical errors over and over again. I looked it up yesterday. Florida leads the nation in win probability lost due to special teams penalties.
That's a funny stat
for a team that made a bunch of noise about hiring a game changer coordinator.
Yeah,
now granted, like he's an analyst because they decided not to go with special teams coordinator, which is actually not all that uncommon, by the way. So I don't really want to knock them for that. I do think if you put a special name on it and then you go out and do that, that's tough. I haven't found a way to filter this yet, but I will. Dude, they've got to be number one in the nation in win probability lost due to short yardage penalties. I mean, they had 4 short yardage false starts against Utah. I think they had 2 more against Kentucky. I actually saw some good things. People hate me for this. I saw some good things by Kentucky against UF, or by UF against Kentucky. Saw a lot of good things for Kentucky against UF. I did see a couple good things. They still schemed some guys open. Mertz had a couple misses. They had a couple drops. They had a couple passes batted, but it wasn't like nobody was ever open. But at the same time, I don't think the score was necessarily misleading because Mertz made some ridiculous plays. Like the one where he's being sacked. And I'm like, are they not going to call in the grasp on this? Like if you don't throw the whistle, the D lineman is going to body slam Mertz, and they don't blow the whistle and he flips the ball to the back. He runs for like 30 because the defense basically stopped on the play. They definitely seem to play differently at home. They really do. And yet I watched Tennessee over the weekend, and Tennessee got Mays back, and they got Mincy back, the right tackle in the center. They were missing there in the swamp. And I think if you play that game in the swamp again, which you can't go back and do, obviously, I'm not so sure that Tennessee doesn't beat them if they got those guys, because Florida really, really abused the backup center for Tennessee. Like Florida's nose guard's a stud. That guy's a clear NFL dude from Memphis. This won't be an easy game in the swamp. They will play really hard in the swamp. They do appear to be a different team at home. People think it's a walkover. I don't think it is. You'll have to play well.
Yeah. Different team at home only makes me think of our friends at FSU Home Loans, legendary team, 844 FSU Loan, 844 FSU Loan. More than 500 listeners have taken advantage of, have taken our suggestion to work with Shannon and Chad, which is your own unique advantage in this process. Most certainly, big kudos to these guys, as we always say. Fantastic to work with. Shannon's legitimately a leader in the industry, but Chad loves Florida State athletics at a level that's hard to articulate. He's in the group text. He's most of the time in the comments. And those guys have started donating a portion of each loan closed to the Battle's End as well. So if you want to work with the best and perhaps help Florida State on the NIL front as well, there is no greater option than the legendary team, 844 FSU Loan, 844 FSU Loan. And a tip of the hat, as always, to the Kings that are Shannon and Chad.
No doubt about it, man. They kill it. I've used them twice. Personal endorsement all the way. Like they go above and beyond with the customer service. They know the market. They're the guys you want to work with. Good quote from Billy Napier. You lose when you don't play winning football, and you win when you play winning football. That's
Yeah.
thanks, Bill Parcells. I kind of want to talk conference title race here a little bit, and it's more about path. Louisville beating NC State was sort of a bad result for the Noles because, and we talked about this in the preseason, like there's certainly a path where Louisville goes 7-1, right? I think they're on that path. So they get Notre Dame this weekend. We'll see. I don't know how good Louisville actually is. At Pitt after the Notre Dame game, it's not a gimme, but like if Pitt doesn't make major improvements, it basically is. Then you get a bye week. Then you get Duke. That's 4 weeks away. Again, I don't know if Leonard is going to be back for Duke within 4 weeks. That looked really bad. I mean, he's like yelling in pain on the ground. And
so don't they get them the week after Florida State?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's in Louisville. Then you get Vatech, Virginia, at Miami, Kentucky. I mean, guys, Louisville is going to be favored in every game in the ACC but Miami. Florida State is on that schedule. Graham mentioned that he thinks they have to go undefeated, Florida State does, to make the college football playoff. I actually disagree. I think a one-loss conference champion, Florida State, has a really good shot to go because of how strong the league was this year in the non-conference. However, if Louisville runs this thing, and there's a pretty good shot, like Louisville could be, 8-0, 7-1. That's going to get them to the conference title game. That makes that Miami game really important because there is certainly a scenario in which 8-0 Louisville and 7-1 Miami with the tiebreaker over the Noles go. Right? If you beat Miami, the odds that you miss the conference title game are basically zero.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there is certainly a scenario in which North Carolina could ice you out potentially because North Carolina will play Miami too. Right. And that game is 2 weeks away. It's in Chapel Hill. And North Carolina has to play at Clemson and at NC State still. So, they probably have some losses coming. Miami, on the other hand, they have a couple interesting games, which it kind of depends. Like, do you think Miami is like a legitimate top 10, top 15, top 20, top 25 type team? I don't know yet. They've only really played like one real game. So it's kind of hard to make snap judgments on this. They go at North Carolina, host Clemson, and then they are at NC State, at Florida State, host Louisville. It's kind of hard to see them running that. But this Louisville threat is like a kind of like we're on like hurricane protocol, not for Miami, but for like, real hurricanes. It's like, all right, that's kind of lurking out there, man. They have the path. We talked about this at AC Media Day. Remember? Brom didn't shy away from me. He's like, no, we know we like what we have in front of us this year. He wouldn't say the schedule's easy. He's like, we have to win immediately because next year the schedule flips, or I assume it does. We don't actually know FSU's schedule next year, right? Because the addition of Cal and Stanford.
Away games expected at Cal and Stanford is
both.
I'm joking, but yeah, that's it'll be fun to see what the conference does with that.
Do you think if they did do that Florida State would just basically stay out there and conduct online classes for like that 5 days?
Yeah, I mean, if you could
get them back
to back it, definitely.
Yeah, I could see that potentially. Yeah, I just the Louisville threat is real and sort of annoying. Trying to think, do you want Miami to beat Louisville for rooting purposes?
Good question. Yeah. In generally, I want Miami to lose as frequently as possible, and also for conference reasons. I do. Look, this will play itself out. Let's revisit this after the Duke game because we'll have a little bit more clarity, obviously, as the season goes on. But I do think it's worth starting to circle 3 or 4 ACC teams that we need to check in on each week just to see where they are, what it's like. Obviously, this is the first time any of us as fans have gone through this experience. I do have some kind of dread that Florida State somehow is going to slip up in one game and then not be able to have access to the ACC championship game, and we'll all be sitting around here wondering, that's a tough one. But yeah, let's keep an eye on it. But no, you're right. I mean, Louisville, it was known as soon as the schedule came out. This is their year. They've got to make as much of it as they can, with the expectation that schedule next year will be very different. Like you said, there's not going to be a schedule anytime soon, and whatever models were out there have gotten skewed rather significantly by the dynamics of the conference and what's been added. But yeah, let's keep it on the tip of our tongue, so to say.
Sam Gordon says in response to like, do you want Miami to beat Louisville? He says, yes, you want to play the best team in the ACC championship for strength of schedule.
See, if you're undefeated, I don't think you need.
But you want to make it,
right? And if you're undefeated, I don't think the schedule talk really matters. Now, it might mean the difference between being number 2 or number 3. I would have a hard time seeing an undefeated Florida State team be the 4th ranked team in a playoff conversation, but we'll see.
Definitely not. Yeah. Playoff odds right now, the Noles are the 2nd most likely team to make the playoff. Now, it's interesting because you have to interpret it in a certain way. So it's Georgia minus 190, Florida State minus 140, Michigan minus 25, Texas minus 110. Everybody else is slightly plus, like Ohio State, Penn State, 140, 250 respectively. And then Washington 340, USC 340, Oregon 340. This is on FanDuel. Wait for some other sites to come out with their odds. They usually come out about Thursday. Oklahoma 360, then Bama, Notre Dame, Miami, whatever. If you like on an individual team basis, I certainly agree that Florida State is the 2nd most likely team to make it. But if you rephrase this as, all right, Georgia, yes, agreed, as a standalone. Big Ten champion, clearly is going, unless it's like a 3-loss West champ, which would be almost like a quarterback injury thing happens in the Big Ten title game, maybe. And then, to me, Texas looks really good, and like if they lined up and played today, I think I would have like Michigan 1, Texas 2, Georgia 3, just based on how they've played so far. If Texas manages to be a undefeated or 1-loss Big 12 team, I think they're right there with Florida State. The schedule's arguably a little bit tougher for Texas because you're probably gonna have to face Oklahoma twice, assuming that chalk holds.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting, but in looking at Louisville's schedule, I was like, damn. There are certainly scenarios in which you are 11-1 and don't make the ACC championship game.
All right. Yeah. Let's not think about that.
Nuts. But we knew about it. Are we really at 6.66 thousand subscribers?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to.
Right, one of y'all hit subs to get us off that. We don't.
Hopefully 40 of y'all hit subs to get us off that. But don't need that.
Good call.
That mojo. All right, man. Anything else you got on the docket?
Should be nice weather in Tallahassee this weekend, I believe. Good weekend to host some recruits potentially. I did want to ask you, since you live there and you're involved in the space, we didn't talk about this. So if you don't have any real thoughts or want to maybe address it next episode, Georgia passing the NIL regulation that high schoolers can now get NIL. Is that something you think was necessary, impactful? Do we think it's going to come to Florida?
I mean, it'll come to Florida because the same thing will happen with Florida players that's happened with Florida coaches if it doesn't. It's just a quick off the hip. If you're not familiar, there's a pretty decent brain drain of Florida high school coaching that just makes its way to Georgia because Georgia pays more and etc. I need to be more familiar with what it is that they actually passed before I start to talk about it. I have maybe it sounds hypocritical, maybe it sounds disingenuous. I'm a little leery of opening up the high school NIL box right now. So we'll see what that means. It does sound like there's going to be a pretty quick response from Florida. Just candidly, I was part of a group that was, exploring that law prior, and that will probably change a little bit based off what's happened in Georgia.
Gotcha. All right, man. I will see you Thursday to preview Virginia Tech.
Let's talk then, dude. Enjoyed it
All right,
as
man.
always.
Yes,
Thanks
sir.
for chiming in with us this morning if you were live. Thanks for liking, subscribing. Please do get us off the old 666 number if you can. And we'll be back with you later in the week. Until then,
All right.
no cast.
See you guys.